Welcome aboard. Time now for us to dig into the major stories in our newspapers. We're grateful for your company. We are joined by Edem Senanu, anti-graft campaigner. He is our guest. So let's start with some of the papers that we have this morning. The Daily Graphic is up first. 2022 academic calendar out. Basics next Tuesday. Let me bring you some details of that. It's from page 20 of the paper. In case you can grab it, you do so. If not, here are some things you ought to know. So the Ghana Education Service has announced that all public schools will begin the 2022 academic year on January the 18th, 2022, next Tuesday. The first semester from KG to JHS will begin from January 18th. The second semester will commence from July the 26th to December 16, 2022 to end the academic year. However, there will be a mid-semester break from the 30th of September to the 9th of October 2022. That's what it's looking like. And this was given during a briefing to journalists on the calendar in Accra yesterday. But as a parent, how do you feel about this development? Later on the last leg of the show, when we discourse on this, when we dilate on it, we would like to hear from you. How do you feel about it, the purported delays and the responses that we've been given that accounted for these delays? That's the very first story. Ghana hungry to deepen ties. You know, we've had Hungary's leader in our country, and payment system in African local currencies launched. But the biggest story, and it's the banner headline. The Ghana Water Company Limited produces under capacity. That's 40%. Was interesting discoursing with Stanley Marty, who has been speaking for that institution for quite a while. And he says it is losing, on the average, 40% of its water production capacity due to the pollution of water bodies it uses as sources of production and the dry season. So two things. It's a two-pronged problem. The drying up of water bodies and also pollution matters. And yesterday he had a discourse with me. They are calling on the general public, all of us, to be more sensitive to how we use water. They talk about the fact that some of us, for example, use treated water, which flows through our taps to water our gardens, our lawns, and all of that. And that in these times, we should desist from those activities as we are all trying to manage. We should all try to manage our water resources. In fact, there is some rationing that is expected, or some rationing that is ongoing. In other stories, Nigeria lifts ban on Twitter after 7 months. We brought you that story yesterday. And Nobel Prize Board urges Abiy, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, to end the Ethiopian war. It's interesting, isn't it? We've seen what happened in Guinea, Mali, and now Burkina Faso. There's a bit of a threat there. Generally across the region, it's not been a very stable 2 or so years. Only God knows where we would be headed. But with all the problems we have as Africans, I don't believe we need even more in terms of civil strife or unrest. Let's check out some more stories from here, and then we shall proceed. Also on the international front, Boris Johnson faces calls to quit. Cabinet ministers have pledged their support for him as he faces calls to resign after attending a drinks party in a lockdown. But the PM cancelled a visit to Lancashire after a family member tested positive for the coronavirus. Will Boris Johnson survive? We've seen what has happened to recent prime ministers in the UK. Will he pull through? That's the big question. On the back page of the paper, Black Stars coach tips team to outshine Gabon. And of course, today we face off with them. Are we going to be able to pull through? That's the big question. We need a result against Gabon, because if we don't, maybe a draw would be the worst, because then we could hope for a win against the Comoros, bearing in mind that Gabon won its first game, pipping the Comoros Islands by 1-0, and then hope to beat the Comoros by a wide margin. Now, to avoid all these calculations and permutations, we can just thrash the Gabonese and, put ourselves on a very sound footing. Party will get better with time. That's according to Coach Rayavach. That's it with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's take a quick look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. And COVID-19 vaccines provide high-level protection GHS rejects concerned doctors' claim. We've been telling you about that, how this group of doctors, specialists who know what they're about, have been talking about the fact that, well, maybe we should be looking at our continuous, purchase of these vaccines from across the world. Maybe we are just enriching global pharmaceutical entities, juggernauts that are just milking our system. But the GHS has come to debunk those claims. Basic schools reopened January 18. Companies register cleanup, 2,788 Coys removed, more to go. And that's coming from Registrar General Mrs. Jemima Oware. Let's check out some other stories. 3 in court for allegedly stealing diesel. And it has to do with 2 employees of First Sky Company on Wednesday who appeared before the Kwando Circuit Court for siphoning a total of, get this, 400 litres of diesel from vehicles belonging to the company. Their names are mentioned. The suspects, who are workers of the company, which is constructing a stretch of the Eastern Corridor Road between Peki Ajoko and Have in the Volta region, pleaded not guilty to stealing. And think of cannabis. Well, arrests over cannabis plants at President's office, and South African police have uprooted several cannabis plants growing near President Cyril Ramaphosa's office in Pretoria. They belonged to a leader who calls himself King Hoyson, clung onto a large cannabis plant as police dragged him away. Just when you thought all stories about cannabis had reached their logical conclusions, we have such incidents. And yesterday was interesting because I was able to put it to Dr. Fred Bakwe, the District Director of Health in the Bono East region, or the Regional Director of Health, and again to Dr. Sapong Esiedu, when it comes to the use of cannabis and its supposed benefits against the coronavirus. But hey, don't take me for... I am not a scientist, I am not a medical doctor, but this is research that some institutions, the Oregon State University, has conducted. Not foolproof yet, so don't go trying cannabis. Which are antidotes for COVID-19? That's the big question. WHO cautions against concurrent outbreaks of COVID-19 and other diseases. And in other stories, we can look at, let me just move to this one. Contractors have no excuse to stop work on our roads. That's according to Mr. Kwabna Ochre Dakon Mensah. Now, that's the Western Regional Minister. Why is he saying this? He has chastised contractors who abandoned work and projects awarded to them because their interim certificates had not been paid. And he's saying that is no justification at all. I agree with him to some extent, but the point is, when you don't pay contractors, on what basis? On what is your moral locus to be able to say that go out there and work? And especially when this has been the bane of our road construction over the decades, because once they are not armed with the right certificates, or if they have to go to banks and make the necessary procurements, or get as the person giving out the contracts, how do you expect them to be able to roll out, conclude, and all of that? So it's a bit of a challenge. And in the meantime, it's the Ghanaian taxpayer who ends up losing. But we are joined now by Edem Senanu. Edem, a very good morning to you. If you can hear me, Edem, please unmute so we can hear what you are saying. Okay, so can you hear me, Edem?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can hear you now with a little static, a little feedback in the background. I hope you're well. We seem to be losing you on and off. It could be with your microphone, the microphone on the gadget you're using. So we'll try to work on that and we'll reconnect with you. But Panthers rather devour. But we're hoping today that it will be in reverse and that will not only shine, will devour as well. The final newspaper now, and don't you worry. Is that Edem? Do I hear something from Edem Senanu? Okay, so Edem, we'll get in touch with you shortly. The final newspaper, GES announces reopening dates for schools. Water will not flow every day. The Ghana Water Company put out to us. I guess it's just left with a timetable. So water will not flow every day. And come to think of it, that is my situation where I live. Water doesn't flow every day. So when it flows, you harvest it, you ensure you have enough to take you for a few days. So if you miss out on the day when water flows, it means you're going to be in some kind of trouble. Adam, better now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. There's still some feedback. Are you monitoring us on any gadget that is close by?
Let me.
Okay, Adam, we'll have to keep working on this, and we'll try to make the most of it when we illegal. That's the question. Let me quickly get into that on page 2. So it says, information reaching the finder indicates that members of University Teachers Association of Ghana, that is UTAG, and Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, that is CTAG, who fail to report to work may not be validated for salary payment in January. This follows a declaration by the National Labour Commission that the strike by the two teachers' unions is illegal. The NLC yesterday met with government officials and the national executive members of UTAG and CTAG to resolve. The finder is learning that state agencies may direct withholding of January salaries of UTAG and CTAG who fail to report to work, as warning to institutions to refrain from embarking on illegal strikes. Officials familiar with this development hinted that all validation officers will be notified so as not to fall out of the law or fall foul of the law and this directive. But that's interesting, the question that is being posed. So because they are striking, you say you are not going to pay them. And it's interesting because I also heard, and let me just clarify, I believe it's one of the director of public affairs at the NLC. I'm talking about El Ankra, also sharing his thoughts that, listen, if you think you can't stand, I'll be putting some of those questions to the UTAG and CTAG members as they join us for a conversation. Adam, better now?
Hi, I believe so.
Great. So now that you've joined us, I'd like to start very quickly from the entire development of, and that is if you want to delve into that, the entire development of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, the Christmas decorations and all of that. I know you followed what board chairman Paul Adomotri has been saying. How do you react to what he says about the sums involved, even 120,000 coming down to 70,000 because so many years now and all of that? It doesn't necessarily have to do with the fact that this came to lie on his desk, his table, and that he signed certain documents. Break it down for ordinary Ghanaians.
Thank you very much. I think that regarding the sum involved and the sponsorship, the two issues you raised, first the sponsorship and then the reduction in the sum. The public financial management law requires that any money that coming, whether by sponsorship or partnership, become part of the public pool of resource money. So it's not free money. And to that extent, there would still be the requirement that you followed value for money principles. You got a minimum of 3 invoices or quotes and use those number of quotes to then arrive at a conclusion. So one will want to look at the paperwork and see, was there a request for proposals in general? How many people? Was it open or was it limited or restricted down to 3 or 2? What were the criteria that was used? In this process, which would have been the procurement unit engaging in this, the board chair has no locus. In fact, the highest ranking officer who could have had some locus would have been the managing director. So it's totally awkward and out of place to have the board chair's name on the bills or invoices. To that extent, we still don't have clarity. I don't think the board or the MD should have instructed the public relations unit or the procurement unit to come out in the public space with the documentation of the process or explaining it so that we have clarity and our concerns are dealt with. Now, the second issue...
Are you suggesting, before you get to the second issue, are you suggesting that as a board chairperson, the person has no, not locus, but no right to interfere in any way when it comes to these procurements of articles, when it comes to Christmas and all of that? Over the years, Paul Adomotri has been pointing to the fact that others have done similar things. Is that as a board chair, he should not be sniffing anything close to such procurements? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's good corporate governance. And it's for good reason.
Adam, if you could go back and start again and speak up. We're losing your voice again.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now better.
Okay. So I'm saying that absolutely, with regard to good corporate governance,
right.
the board chair has absolutely no role to play because you don't want a conflict of interest situation. You don't want a situation where, because of his position, which is a public position of trust, his influence as a board chair begins to improvise services or goods.
Right.
So he has absolutely no rule for good reason, because you don't want the final decision to be based on someone who has a connection with the board or a member of the board or otherwise. So he's totally excluded from the processes. It's only with the strategic issues. If it were the company needs to go and raise funds or do something, that the board comes in, etc. So this is totally.
So by what you're saying, Paul Adomotri fundamentally is in breach. Okay.
Absolutely.
You are about to make a second point, so I'll leave you to go ahead now and make that point.
The second point has to do with the scope of work. It is good and commendable to say that the funds that have been utilized for this over the years has been reduced. However, to make an informed comparison, we need to know the scope of work. In 2016, did they buy 10 Christmas trees? For what cost? And for example, if you bought 10 Christmas trees for 20,000 Ghana cedis, and then in 2021, you bought 2 Christmas trees, you will find that the 10 Christmas trees at 20,000 is certainly higher in terms of the final cost than the 2 Christmas trees for 15,000. But the unit cost has gone considerably higher. So until they provide the details regarding what exactly has transpired between 2016 and 2021, the argument that we have spent less is neither here nor there.
It would be like comparing apples and oranges, and I get you, but the picture Paul Adomotri has created 2 terminals. So he is suggesting more for less money. Do you get it? So it is interesting that you bring that up, because it is also relevant in finding out whether indeed we got more for less.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not about the terminals. It's about the units. How many Christmas trees? What were the specifications of those Christmas trees?
Adam, again, the sound factor is
high.
Yes, better.
Yeah. So I was saying that absolutely, it's not about the number of terminals. It's about the units of product or the goods that were provided. Do we have many more goods for less, or much less goods for much more? It's about process and policy.
Right.
And until he gets someone, and ideally he should have relinquished this to some other group in the entity to speak to, it's not good enough for the board chair to be using his own media platforms to deal with this. This is corporate governance. The way we approach it is different, and the board chair ought not to be involved in trying to make an argument about it.
Okay.
Let's get the details of the procurement process that was followed. Let's be able to tell for ourselves that there were 15 people originally, it screened down to 2, and ideally they should screen down to 3. And if you wanted to select one, but I mean...
Conclusion of this for you. If Paul Adomotri were to come out publicly and say, oh, I erred, I am sorry, Mama Minsaso, it's okay. Can we let it go? Or are you going to follow this to its logical conclusion in court, as some people have suggested? I know you've taken particular interest in this matter. What is the logical conclusion for you, Adam Sinano?
Honestly, if Paul had just said I goofed, that would have been it. He's just been appointed. He needs probably some coaching on good corporate governance and, on those processes, especially to the extent that we don't...
So basically it was a lack of knowledge on his part.
And now you have the minority saying they're going to do an investigation, which is a good thing. People who have been appointed board chairs will now make sure that they learn the ropes before they begin to act.
Okay. All right. Let's move into the Daily Guide newspaper. I'll start from the entertainment end of things. It says, I don't use juju. Fancy Gadam reacts. He's been interacting with my colleague KMJ in recent times, and he says he doesn't use juju on his fans. People are saying, hey, your fan base in the Northern Belt, it's awesome, amazing. And he says he doesn't use juju because that's what some people have suggested. Emirates resumes passenger flights to Ghana and others. You know about the recent situation. But the main story I want to run by you, and bonks 2 daughters, impregnates stepdaughter. I'll read out the details for you. And a 35-year-old man identified only as Isaka, who allegedly had sexual intercourse with his own daughters, is in hot waters. Details on page 6 as well. As if that were not enough, he had also allegedly impregnated his 17-year-old stepdaughter. The beastly act allegedly occurred at Nsaba in the Kwewu West municipality of the Eastern Region. Abna Joyce, 30, mother of the victims, confirmed the incident on Ago FM at Nkoko, saying the husband normally took advantage of the children in her absence. She then appealed to the authorities to take the necessary action against the husband, but did not say whether she had filed any complaint with the police. It gets more interesting. Chief of Nsaba, Nanaose Chumberima, also spoke on the same network and expressed shock over the incident, saying that it was the first of its kind since he became chief. What do you make of this development? And I know in the course of your legal work, you've come across a number of these. What does the law say about people who engage in incest and all these acts, taking advantage of minors, even as a parent?
Well, I can see you assume that I'm a lawyer, but I'm not.
Oh, I know you are not technically, but you delve into.
He needs help. You can't be normal to go raping, impregnating your own daughter's half daughter with your wife still around and be okay. He definitely needs help. There's a real problem, and whilst the law will take its course, I think that hopefully we have the support services to try and find out what is happening in his mind. Obviously, a mental health challenge.
Anyway, so with situations like this, it gets pretty troublesome. Not just because if there's, how do you call it? If they have an issue or anything, the consequences that could have on the children and all of that. But it leaves a very bad taste in the mouth of society and a father who would give out his children now. So hopefully now that the authorities have got wind of it, the right action will be taken and we can rid ourselves of, if it is proven, because the law is all about evidence and proof, then we can rid ourselves of, I don't want to call him a monster, but at least someone who maybe should not be.
It must have been going on for a long time. The trauma of the children. I mean, I think that we cannot have this discussion without emphasizing that these children will need a lot of help, because the power dynamics of being in a home where you have a father whose word is final, and it's something that leaves scars for life. And so even much more than obviously he needs attention. It's attention that and support that must go to those girls who have been violated, as long as the evidence confirms that this is actually the case.
Well, just to give a little clarity on this, just to specify, in case you didn't understand what per our laws incest is, though I know there are some slight variations, it is proscribed, not prescribed, proscribed by this. According to Act 29, under Section 105(1) and 2 of Act 29, a sexual intercourse will be incest, where a male of 16 years or more has sexual intercourse with a female whom he knows to be his granddaughter, daughter, sister, mother, or grandmother, or where a female of 16 years or more who has sexual intercourse with a male whom she knows to be father. But of course, in this case, there is also the bit about a stepdaughter as well. Let's do the Ghanaian publisher now. Ghana out of countries in money laundering activities. Does that make you happy? Edem Senanu. Ghana, take a quick look at it. The European Commission, through the intermediary of the Commissioner for Financial Services, Financial Stability and Capital Markets Union, Mary McGuinness, has now formally removed Ghana from the grey list of high-risk third countries or third world countries in money laundering activities. President Akufo-Addo announced this yesterday.
Good news when we are making progress in these spaces. I think the last 2 years has been a lot of pressure to get a law in place and mechanisms in place to be able to trace funding that comes to different spaces, including civil society. So it's good news to hear that we've been taken off that list, because otherwise it just makes us not look good at the international level. So this is good news for us.
Let's look at page 2. Bawumia, and I'm talking about vice president, is causing sleepless nights. That's according to a group. I'm sure you followed all this banter, the discourse on the new patriotic wine I heard yesterday, talking about Mamprupsi taking over at the helm of affairs and all of that. And he says there's nothing wrong with that he, as a national figure of the party, he is just saying what he wants to see. He wants to see moving forward. But others have tried it and they've been relieved of their positions and all of that. Sidelined, but the vice president is being given certain opportunities that makes the whole situation unfair. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that the party ought to take these red flags with a lot of caution and do the very best they can to level the playing field and ensure that the various groupings don't get to a head. We don't want any implosions. We want to be sure that we have our political parties available to continue pursuing the democratic dispensation we have. But having said that, I also worry that we seem to start a political season too early.
Right.
Because then what it means is that for almost a 4-year period, you are almost in campaign mode. We have persons of public political interest going around the country, engaging, and the whole country's discourse seems focused on who is the presidential competitor, who is going to win. When 2022, there's so much work to do.
Right.
I think we really do need a law that limits the political season to, let's say, half a year of the election year. So let's say 2024, June to December, and all our energies are spent in that period. Otherwise, we are not paying attention to the developmental issues sufficiently.
Okay. Adam, it's been refreshing interacting with you this morning. My only pain is that owing to technology, you couldn't connect with us earlier. But thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for having me.
Great. And that is Adam Senanu, anti-graft campaigner, who joined us for the news review. Up next, we bring you sports with Muftau Nabida Abdullahi. We'll be talking about the Black Stars. Don't go away.